considering the plethora of platforms that we have that disseminate information and news, is there a sense that we're being almost ridiculously balanced for no reason? Is there a thing in which we could be falsely balanced? Where is it important for journalists and disseminators of news and information to process the scientific process, the scientific method in providing their audiences with news and information, and that might then be quite biased. So how do you grapple with the dichotomy between the need to be fair and balanced, and then also the responsibility by the public to report what is the objective truth?
Yeah, we've run into that. I mean, in J school for the last 2 generations, as you know, a lot of teachers teach that there's no such thing as objectivity, and that the best you can hope to do is to be fair and balanced, which means that you just report on both sides of an argument, and then you kind of brush your hands and think your job is done. But where this intersects with politics is where we get into trouble then. Let's say, and especially when in science issues, because remember, again, science is about knowledge, and knowledge is about power. So when there's a science issue or a fact issue involved, journalists have a different responsibility that they've pretty much abdicated for the last 40 years or so. Let me give you an example. Let's say that Julie argues 2 + 2 is 4, and Francois argues that 2 + 2 is 6. A journalist will say, okay, look at this. Francois is arguing 2 + 2 is 6. We've got a real controversy here. And you sell a lot of newspapers probably because people will get angry and say, that's an idiot, and the paper shouldn't be publishing this, and what does he think? And so you create a lot of controversy, and why isn't Julie speaking up more? And I'm on her side, and then other people will come in and say, well, no, maybe he's got a legitimate reason for his perspective. So the controversy rages. And then you have scientists that will say, well, I can show you with these 2 apples and these 2 apples that one side is clearly wrong, that 2 + 2 is 4. And then you have a politician who looks at this controversy, in a democracy anyway, and they say, well, how about a compromise? We'll pass a new law that says 2 + 2 is 5. And that's where we get. But what that does then is that creates a sense of false balance, because Francois doesn't have evidence that's backing up his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion, but not his own facts. But when journalists portray this controversy as fair, take the fair and balanced approach, they've been fair to both sides. They portrayed Francois without judgment. They didn't weigh in on it, but they did weigh in, because they weighed in against Julie, because they didn't point out that she has the evidence on her side. So they're pretending that the emperor has clothes on here when he doesn't. And so they've elevated an extremist point of view, Francois' point of view, that doesn't have evidence, and created what we call false balance, what scientists call false balance, because it gets us in our public policy and our decision making away from reality. So the media really plays a critical role. Us writers play a critical role then in grounding what we say, if we're doing reportage, in evidence. And I would argue that the way into a story then is really looking at what is Francois' motivation for his argument, and doing a little bit of digging and saying, why is he presenting a counterfactual argument? That's really where the interesting story is, because he's trying to pull one over on the public.